I now call the Winton Woods Board of Education regular meeting to order. It is 6:30 p.m. on Monday, August the 22nd, 2016, and I would like to ask that you please turn all your electronic devices to silence, and please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is over it this way. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Seymour, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Robles?
Present.
Mr. Birdie?
Present.
Dr. Johnson?
Present.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Present.
And Mrs. Miranda? Absent.
Okay. I would like to congratulate President Jessica Miranda and her husband, Jose Miranda, on the new addition of their baby girl to the family. And in President Miranda's absence, I will lead this board meeting tonight. So, having said that, our first item on the agenda this evening is our district honors, recognitions, gifts, and introductions. Mr. Superintendent, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam Vice President, sitting in for the President. Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to have Ms. Karen Holman come forward, please. And her team. Your team.
A little bit of my team.
Okay, how many of you have ever seen the TV show Hell's Kitchen? Well, this is Heaven's Kitchen. This is a different group. And I'd like to say kudos, bravo, just every other kind of initiative that we could put out there. Winton Woods City Schools Food Service, Ms. Karen Holman, Food Service Director. Congratulations to Ms. Holman and the food service staff for earning the Clean Kitchen Award. Hamilton County Public Health introduced the Clean Kitchen Award in 2011. This award is available only to the top food service operator retail food establishments, licensed performers in facility sanitation and food safety education. Now, before you applaud, hotels are part of this, restaurants are part of this, so it's not just schools. And Ms. Holman, for your impeccable work with the staff, we thank you for not only creating the best environment as it relates to food, but making sure that everything is handled in a very, very safe, efficient manner. So thank you very much. We do not take this lightly. So a round of applause would be appreciated.
There's one. This is for Primary South, and I don't have anyone here to receive that one.
All right. And this one is for Primary North.
Also don't have anyone here for Primary North.
Okay. And this one is for the middle school.
I do have one for middle school. This is Star Simpson. She's our middle school manager.
This is Winton Woods Intermediate School.
And this is Vicki Kenninger. She's our intermediate school, well, actually, elementary school manager. She manages all 4 elementary buildings.
And this is for the Winton Woods Elementary School.
And I don't have anyone here from the elementary school, but
So there were about 60 restaurants, facilities on the list, and we have 5 of those. So that's huge. Thank you very much.
good. Thank you.
We'll hold these up so that we can have them. And let me hold it a little bit better here.
1, 2, 3, keeps going. Very good, thank you.
All right. So we'll hold on to these and make sure that they get to the.
I wonder how many people would have this award hanging up in their kitchen at home.
Yes.
Just wondering.
Maybe not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next award is for the Community Spirit Award and the United Way Success by 6. Any representative from United Way, come on up, please. Winton Woods City Schools thanks United Way Success by 6 for their continued collaboration in creating educational initiatives in this district that support the importance of early childhood education. This year's kindergarten and preschool students and their families specifically benefited from the group's generous grant to our Kindergarten Jump Start program. United Way Success by Six has sponsored an annual Kindergarten Readiness Summit. It has helped our staff members identify new and effective strategies to engage families and communities in school readiness efforts. All of this has helped Winton Woods City Schools reach its goal of ensuring all students achieve their highest potential. We're grateful for the ways that United Way Success by Six has supported Winton Woods students and teachers, and we applaud the organization for its generous service to our district. This month, we're pleased to present the August Community Spirit Award to United Way Success by Six. Before you leave,
Yes.
give us a little idea of where did the term come from, Success by Six? I know, but I think everybody would like to know.
Sure. Well, Success by Six means by 6 years of age, not 6 o'clock in the evening. It's really intended to focus all of our community's resources and efforts on the first 6 years of a child's life, because we know that that's critical for brain development. And when a child has a healthy start to school, they're more likely to be reading proficiently by 3rd grade, do well in 8th grade math, and graduate from high school and go on to some post-secondary education. So it all starts in the 0 to 6 space, and so our work is focused on the things that we need to do as a community to help parents help their children in that age group.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next award is, oh, by the way, Success by Six contributed $7,000 to our Kindergarten Jump Start program, so thank you very much. Next, the Board of Education expresses its deep gratitude to the City of Forest Park, along with yours truly, Mr. Denny, Environmental Awareness Department, for its generous donation of $6,900 for recycling receptacles at the Winton Woods High School Stadium. Could we get a picture?
We had technical difficulties over here.
Okay, but there are technical people over there. Okay, so if it ever pops in, Mr. Denny. But the receptacles are very nice. They are in our school colors, blue and green, with the Warriors head on there, or with the W. Okay, all right, fantastic.
I'm working.
All right, we'll come back to you. The next award is to Forest Chapel Methodist Church for its generous donation of 2 Chromebooks, classroom supplies, and personal care items to be given to students. The approximate value is $3,000. Anyone here from Forest Chapel United Methodist Church? Okay. The next award goes to the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Phi Psi Omega chapter. I was going to call them first, but I knew one of their members was missing, so I had to wait. So here they are, on time. And so would you like to come up?
Oh, thank you. I didn't know we were getting an award.
The Phi Psi Omega chapter donated $500 to benefit the Winton Woods High School Science Department. The Board of Education extends its appreciation for the organization's generosity.
All right. Well, thank you. We really appreciate this recognition, and really thoroughly enjoy working with the Winton Woods School District and all the support. I mean, it really gives us an opportunity to live our mission of service to all mankind and make a significant impact. And so I actually have the $500 check
Oh, wow.
with me. I'm Pamela Dial, by the way, the president, and this is LaTanya Benson, the vice president, and she's the program chairman and over the SIN program. And one of the things we also wanted to do was just make sure that we communicated that we're going to kick off our next cycle. This is our year 2 of this program, and it starts on September 10th. And Mrs. Denson has applications for you to share with students that you know that would benefit from our program. We're really pleased to be working with the Winton Woods School District.
Thank you very, very much. If you didn't know, their colors are pink and green.
Yes.
Mr. Smith, can I please have that envelope?
It's actually going to the science department.
At the high school?
At the high school.
for the STEM project. They
That's
allow
right.
us to do a bicycle STEM project, and so next year we're hoping to do a nice digital media project with the students. So we're
Me
excited.
first and then Princess.
Okay.
Mrs. Wilson, you want to add a few
I
words?
just wanted to say the reason we wanted Mr. Martin to come up was because we used the high school library all year last year, and there were several times where we set the alarm off and had to call Mr. Lumpkin, Mr. Martin, Princess Crenshaw, who's a member of a different sorority. She came over and helped, and Mrs. Martin actually was moving chairs for us, so it's been a wonderful partnership. And so I just want to thank you, Mr. Martin, and the whole team for
Thank you.
letting us use the library.
I mean, I think it just indicates that we don't do anything alone, that it only
Fantastic.
takes partnerships to really make a significant impact. And so again, we just really feel honored and thank you for your support, this award, and just the continued partnership. And we're just looking forward to more things that we'll do together.
You know, I don't know if there's a code of ethics as it relates to sororities, but the unnamed sorority that Mrs. Wilson chose not to name is Delta Sigma Theta. All right, so I'll put that in there.
Great sorority.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson.
Again, we're all in it together.
Absolutely. She made us feel like we were all in it together. Yeah. Yes, you have a picture.
I do.
Way to go, Mr. Denny. Fantastic. So, is he here?
Yep.
Say a little bit about why.
Why
Yes, sir.
we partnered with the school?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the stadium's always been there, and I've always looked at it, and y'all have a lot of big crowds in there, and it's always been a project of mine to try to do something. And then when Steve Denny came up and says, you know, we're thinking about this, and we're thinking about this, and all of a sudden it started really thinking good, and it's a great project. I think there are a lot of neat projects going on over at the high school and throughout the Winton School District. And I'm just glad to be a part of it when I can. And I hope that in the future we have more projects that we can share and see where we can go with it. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Thank you. We really appreciate it, sir.
Okay.
Very much.
There you go.
Oh, thank you.
Stand to the
Mr. Denny?
side.
Have the light. Stand on one side.
Mr. Denny is going to be in the spot.
I've got the rings.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
You get me holding these balloons?
Dr. Johnson, isn't it great to stand in when you get all these pictures?
I don't like taking pictures, so.
All right. Is Reverend Darrell Blank here? Okay, we recognize the Springdale Nazarene Church at our last board meeting, but they did not have a representative. So what we'll do, we'll keep recognizing them until they actually have a representative. So, Ms. Jordan, tomorrow morning, get on the phone, call them, and let them know they'll be at our September board meeting so that we can recognize them properly. All right? Thank you very much. Okay. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Smith, and congratulations again to the District Food Service Director and those who work with her, and those who were honored this evening, and to the wonderful community members that, for their continued support of our district. We'll take a 5-minute recess now and resume in 5 minutes.
Thank you.
We'll now resume our regular board meeting. I don't have any public comments, so we're just going to move right on with the next item on the agenda. And the next item is the approval of the board minutes. And board, unless you see any necessary changes, A motion will be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the board meetings as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion? If there is none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call the vote?
Sure. Mrs. Ruggles?
Yay.
Mr. Birdie?
Yay.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye. Okay, that passes unanimously. Our next item on the agenda is our treasurer's report. So, Mr. Seymour, back to you.
Well, there's really not too much to report on the financial report, as you haven't really adopted the appropriations yet. So you saw that the reports are kind of not totally complete for the month. But for the month, we did collect $10 million in the general fund, which is mostly real estate advances. And we did spend close to $3.2 million to operate the month of July in the general fund. And then all district funds, we had about an encumbered balance of around $21 million, of which $20 million was the general fund.
Okay, with no objections being heard, the financial report for the month of July 2016 will be submitted to audit. And the next item, the treasurer's recommendations. Mr. Seymour will return to you. 7.01.
For the month of July, on interest, we earned $16,460, and we had approximately $25 million invested during that month of July.
Okay, board, a motion would be in order.
Board, I'd like to make a motion to approve the investments for July 2016 as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call the vote?
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye. Mr. Seymour, 7.02. Back to you for the five-year forecast.
If it's
No,
all
I'm sorry.
right.
It's the resolution. I'm sorry, the resolution for appropriations. I'm sorry.
What I would like to do is take about 5 to 10 minutes to kind of go over it up on the screen there, and I don't think I really need to get up because everyone can kind of see it. And so what we're going to ask you to adopt tonight is the for our fiscal year, this coming school year, our appropriations and our 5-year forecast. As you know, when you adopt the appropriations, it's not just general fund, but general fund is the account where you have most of the discretion. On your special revenue funds, they are funds that come from state or federal, and they mostly are restricted funds, and you have to spend them for the purpose of which they were appropriated. You really have little discretion in how you spend those funds. And then on our other funds, we have approximately $3 million, of which $2 million of that is your lunchroom fund. $800,000 is your permanent improvement fund. Under your special revenue, some of your major funds are your athletic, band, and music. For around $165,000, you have auxiliary services, which is John Paul. The district does manage John Paul state funds for them. John Paul also gets funds through some of the federal grants also. IDEA, your special education, is around $1 million. Title I school improvement is $160,000. Title I is your largest federal fund of $1.5 million, with Title IIA teacher quality at $110,000. Your other funds, your permanent improvement and your food service, which I just mentioned, are your major other funds. But mostly when you adopt and look at your appropriations, the board's being asked to adopt the appropriations, but you might want to know where the money's come to fund those appropriations. And you can see there, our local taxes is still slightly over 50% of your funds, with the state becoming 40%. And then your other categories making up the other 10. And here you can see your source of revenues as they have grown over the years. And the green mark is the other local funds, which is what you have control over. Some people can say you have control over real estate taxes. Not always. You have to pass additional millage to get it. You have to be approved by the voters. And you also have to watch your tax base as you go through the years. You have no control over state funding. You don't know what state funding is going to do. Well, in the second year of the biennium, I've been doing this a long time, we could have a new governor and you could see a new funding formula. When I mentioned the tax base, your highest tax base was back in '08, where you were right around 550 million, which meant roughly that each mill generated $546,000. Currently, you're down approximately 20% to 440,000, or 440,000 for a mill, or $440 million. So there's our current tax base. Our current voted millage is 85.81, but our effective millage is 53.56 for residential and 64 for commercial. Commercial keeps escalating because we keep having commercial properties asking for reductions and bankruptcies and small movement of commercial property. And when that happens on commercial property, the effective millage goes up because you still get to collect the same dollars. And for real estate, including your homestead and rollback, we're projecting around close to $25 million. So our state funding will be roughly $18 million, with transportation of special ed at $190,000 and preschool at $186,000. Transportation for special ed and preschool are outside the funding formula. Our other local receipts, we get some revenue in lieu of taxes. As you know, we enter into TIF agreements with Forest Park, Green Hills, Springfield Township, and when they go into a TIF arrangement, that basically means that the real estate taxes on that property will go to the entity or the government, and then they hold the school district harmless by reimbursing the district for any tax dollars that we would have lost on that TIF arrangement. Your other large open enrollment issue right now is open enrollment, which is approaching $1 million a year, and tuition from other districts, rental facilities, and then other miscellaneous receipts. Our other state receipts are basically our Medicare reimbursement, catastrophic aid, which is reimbursement from the state for special ed students of very costly nature. When they reach a cost to the district of over $36,000, we'll get partially refunded for some of that excess over $36,000. E-rate is for federal reimbursement for communications and networking, and I believe also it still includes the internet, doesn't it, for communications. And then, of course, the big one of casino proceeds, which we're going to be the save all for schools, and we get $180,000. So how are the dollars spent? We're proud to say that 70 cents on every dollar goes right into the classroom, operations at 27 cents per dollar, and then extracurricular activities at 1.61%. So then we take a look at how our spending pattern has been, and you can see there that I've showed fiscal year '08 through the current, and it's like a pyramid effect on what we're spending those funds on, with salaries and benefits being the blue, along with purchase services making up a majority of your budget. So what has been included in the appropriations for salaries and benefits? I included your negotiated increases for this year, any restaffing allocations. We have had a healthcare has been projected at a 5% decrease for this year, with dental at a 10% increase. Our non-personnel expenditures are up in the categories of instructional support of $630,000. Maintenance, basically safety and security, we have added $1.4 million. Your tuition is up $340,000, and utilities $115,000. I just tried to list the major categories that were increased from last year. So as if you might ask, why are the appropriations up, I tried to show you where those areas were. So we are going to start the year with 18 million. We're going to collect 47, projected to spend 53, and end with $12 million for the year. This is just projected.
So just a question for you.
Sure.
So as you create the appropriations, there's certain areas that may be padded a little bit heavier, or are they higher in some areas, like, just to make sure that we do not overspend?
Well, a few areas. One thing is, Mr. Denny and I always add 10% into utilities. We want to make sure the utilities are covered. I always add teaching positions because I never know. I always add two regular regular teaching positions because we never know, maybe till after this is adopted, that a class has to be split because of the student enrollment. I always add special ed teachers because once Mrs. Darcy's has a class that hits 8 students, we have to create a new one. We don't always know when that's going to happen. Hopefully it doesn't, but
That helps.
Mr. Denny's maintenance is not padded. I think he has it almost all spent already. But yeah,
Maybe
there are.
that word isn't the right word, but it's interesting just to make sure that we're projecting out where we think that we might need some
We
increase
try
over.
to budget so that we don't have to come to the board and ask for an increase.
Right.
Hopefully, we come to you 11 months from now and tell you what our savings were and where it was at. But it is just very similar to your home budget. You might create a budget and something happens and goes astray. As you'll know, in the appropriations, I do ask for a $250,000 contingency, and it's listed as a contingency. And that's an event that maybe there's something happens that we have to absolutely take care of. And the board basically gives me the authority to transfer those funds. But at the end of the year, Mrs. O'Connor and I always make sure that that contingency is put back from all the accounts that had funds left. We have never had to, since I've been here, by the close of the books, we've never spent that contingency. But it helps to have that when someone needs funds and you don't want to start taking from committed funds that you've committed to a different department. But come April, all funds turn back to the treasurer and we take from the funds that we want. So, but the department heads and the principals always have their funds intact until we announce that if it's not spent by this time, then we might adjust that.
Right. Thank you.
And then also you'll be taking a look at the 5-year forecast, and you start the 5-year forecast in the current year with the appropriations that you're going to adopt. So in the 5-year forecast, I've held the revenues fairly constant except for state funding. And in state funding for 2017, we'll have an increase of 1.2 million. For 18, 1.4 million. And tangible personal is totally gone now for Winton Woods. I've assumed negotiated increases. We have awarded our staff not only a salary increase for this year, but for 18. We will have adjustments in their steps through 21, but I have no salary increases projected beyond 18. That would always be subjective to the board and negotiations, and in 18, we may not have the funds to give raises, so I don't project them. Healthcare, 5% decrease this year with 5% increases for the forecast. Dental is a 10% increase for this year and 5% increase for future projections. On the dental insurance, starting in January will be the first year that we're going self-insured. So we did get our estimate for our increase for this year, and it was 10%. But next year, we will be self-insured, and it probably, hopefully, will be 0, but we shall see. But we don't want to under-project it. But dental is not a big part of your budget. Healthcare is. Healthcare is $5 million of your appropriations. Other assumptions, and I did ask Mr. Smith if I could put this slide in here before we got here tonight, and he said absolutely. I assumed in 2018, we're going to reduce $2.8 million from this year's appropriations, adjusted by any budget savings that we would have from this year. So that is in your 5-year forecast. We will be reducing the non-salaried accounts by approximately $2.8 million in the forecast. So to summarize, I've taken the forecast up there for you, and it's rounded to millions. And you can see that by making that assumption in 18, you can see what happens in 20 when you start to lose. As you know, in 20, I've assumed that you have a replacement levy, but I can't assume it's going to pass. So the revenues have been adjusted to reflect the reduction of the emergency levy for 20 and 21. And this is just to show how your operating cash balance starts to cycle down when you go towards a levy. The board, not this board, but the Winton Woods Board of Education's, since the passage of the levy, has done an excellent job, and they have taken $4 million and made it last 10 years. So the deficits that you're starting to see in 18 and 19 are something that every district in the state of Ohio faces, but not in a 10-year cycle. It's usually much shorter. And this is just a graph to represent that the expenditures are in red, your receipts are in blue, and all funds available are in green. So when red goes above blue, you need to start looking at how you're spending. And when green and blue intersect, you better have resolved the issue and replaced that emergency levy.
All right. Actually, you went over both of them, so I'm just going to back up one.
Oh, you have questions.
Well, I don't know. Well, Katrina did jump in. We're going to back up to 7.02, which was the resolution for the appropriation. So a motion would be in order for that one.
I'll make a motion to approve the permanent appropriations for fiscal year 2017 as presented.
It's been moved. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any other questions that you might have for Mr. Seymour regarding the 7.02, the resolution for the appropriations?
I kind of have a comment, and as far as the projection or the appropriations for this year, we're embarking on a very exciting program with the New Tech program and the opportunity to get started very well. I think I'm excited that we have the resources to be able to fund it in a way that will make it successful. I think that's critical in the starting point, so I just wanted to compliment the superintendent and the treasurer by making or presenting a budget that was able to support this incentive and this initiative. So
I agree with that. I think it's important that if we are going to embark on something that is innovative, like New Tech, that is a game changer, we have to make sure that we support it appropriately. Otherwise, you're not, what's the point? If you got to be all in and decide to do it 100%. This area is not my strong suit as far as, understanding everything that's going in the budget, but I'm glad to see how much money is going into the classroom. It's reflected within our budget, but I'm also glad to know that we will be informed along the way as we get further along and how or if any adjustments are needed. And I come from grant funds, and it's so funny. I'm like, when I initially see anything that's in a deficit, but it's good to know that there's a plan to make some adjustments along the way.
Okay. I just had one comment, Mr. Seymour. When you were going over the appropriations, I seen the number for fiscal year 17 and fiscal year 18. That includes all of the regular, the regulated increases that for the salaries, that's
Yes,
projected in
you
it.
settled with both WWTA teachers and OPSI for a 2-year settlement.
Okay, and that
Yeah,
was included
it's
in the
included.
numbers we see.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no other questions, we would like to go ahead and call the vote for 7.02, the resolution for the appropriation.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye. Okay, that one passes unanimously. Let's go to 7.03. We need to open the floor for a motion for the 5-year forecast. A motion is in order.
I would like to make a motion to approve the 5-year forecast for fiscal years 2017 through 2021 as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
no, actually, my comments was for 7.03, so.
Okay, that's where we're at. That's where
Well,
we're
no, previously, I thought we were on 7.02,
Oh,
so I just
okay.
wanted to
I see.
clarify.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm good.
I do have one question, Madam President.
Okay.
Vice President. On the millage, and I was interested to see the reduction, and I'm assuming that has to do with the reduction in property values affects the millage of property taxes. And that it was, what'd you say, 20% drop?
We've had a 20% drop in evaluation,
Okay.
yes.
Do you see that, well?
Yes,
can you do the
it's
answer?
going to continue for a while.
Go up or down or fluctuate? You think?
We constantly are having requests for reductions in value, especially in your commercial base.
And obviously, that's detrimental to our forecast.
Mhm.
And then the more businesses our community attracts, the better for our school district, obviously.
Mhm.
Okay. I like to ask questions I know the answers to.
Oh, that's good.
I try to share with I try to share with you the major ones, that we appeal and.
Well, and I think that the schools can play a major role in bringing filling our community with businesses in the partnership. So we go hand in hand. So I'm really, I want to continue to, hopefully we'll have businesses coming into our community to be able to support our schools. So that's critical, so.
You were able to keep Emeritus, so they were threatening to leave. So there's a TIF arrangement for that too, which I've shared, so.
Okay.
I have one, I guess, question/comment, though, Mr. Seymour. On the 5-year forecast, it does include the state funding that it was included with that?
Yes.
With that?
Only funding that I'm aware of. As you know, they pass a funding formula, and then they either guarantee you or cap you.
Right.
And right now, under the funding formula, we were to receive in excess of 20 million. But this year we got 17, then we get 18, then we get, because you can only get a 7% increase per year.
Okay.
And by the time we reach our potential, it's probably going to change.
Okay. All right. Okay, you don't have a crystal ball either, so you can't.
No.
You know.
But I
It's-
doubt if the current governor's back, so.
Yeah.
And we'll have a new system.
Yeah, it's all gonna change. Any other discussion or questions for Mr. Seymour on 7.03? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call the roll?
For the 5-year forecast?
For
Yes.
the 5-year forecast,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Our next item on the agenda are our reports from the superintendent. So, Mr. Smith, you have the floor for 8.01 school reports.
Yes, Madam Vice President. There are some exciting things happening in all the schools, but I would like to first recognize Mrs. Denny and also Mr. Smith for working diligently for the celebration of celebrating kids' success before they even came to school. We thought that would be just a great way to bring them into the doors and make it fun and exciting, and it was actually featured on the front page of the Inquirer on Saturday morning. So bravo to our community engagement coordinator for all the work that she does. There's MAP testing that's taking place in the primary grades August 29th to September 9th. And then there's kindergarten hearing vision screenings September 6th to the 9th. There's something very exciting that's happening at the intermediate building. There's an open house, but the open house is going to be in 2 different times. So I want people to be aware that the 5th grade section is from 6 to 7, and that's August 24th, and the 6th grade section is 7:30 to 8:30. So hopefully parents will be able to make one of those times. And then there is a very important day where there will be no students. That's our first Teaching and Learning Professional Development Day on September 16th for all schools. So there will be no students that day. And then finally, there's a College Information FAFSA night, which stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And that will be held at the high school on September 20th, 6 to 8. There'll be more advertisement and more brochures about it. We need to get our parents to come out and fill out those forms because their children do qualify. And if we get the forms filled out in enough time, then that means that they can get the grants that they need and they don't have to go out and seek loans. We have children that are very, very bright, very, very talented, but no matter how bright and talented you are, there must be money to help fund your education. So we want to make sure that they understand the value of FAFSA night.
Mr. Smith, I'm glad to see that they're starting early because this is one of the years that students are able to complete the FAFSA. I know for the students at Cincinnati State in December.
Yes.
And the monies and the way that parents need to understand is that money is available in like a bucket. So the sooner the students apply, the sooner they can get in line for some of those state funds. I'm not sure if the priority deadline changed from February 15th, but it's good that we're making September our priority instead of the next year.
So those are the
thank
reports.
you.
Okay. 8.02, summer school reports, Mr. Smith.
Dr. Holden.
Okay.
Evening, Board.
Hello.
And Dr. Ragland.
And Dr. Ragland's going to jump in on the next one. I'm just going to talk to you briefly about the summer school. We had a busy summer, so it was honestly a little difficult to run summer school because we had a lot on our plate this summer. But I've broken it into secondary programs and elementary. So for secondary, we ran OGT prep, 46 students. This is a combination of juniors who are now seniors, senior non-grads, and then non-grads from years past. So these are a group of students that actually have struggled for a while, so it's much more difficult for them. And you know that the students who persevered here tonight, some of them were due to this. So then Algebra 1, 9 through 11. That was actually relatively successful, 26 kids, and 81% earned their algebra credit so that they can either get back on track or remain on track.
Without the summer school opportunity, what does that look like, Dr. Holden?
It looks like I'm a sophomore trying to figure out how I'm going to take geometry and algebra at the same time.
Same time. Not happening.
Online health. Some years we don't offer it because nobody signs up for it, but we had 4 students and they all earned their health credit. And then virtual credit recovery at the high school. So these are high school students who, again, have gotten behind because failures generally of core courses. And so they take virtual classes to kind of get back on track. So 13 students recovered 21 credits. And middle school has not a credit recovery, but course recovery because they don't award credits in middle school. So 34 students there, and 79% kind of earned the passing grades in those courses. For some of those students, it's an indication of whether or not they're moving to the high school.
So for the virtual credit of the 13 students, how many credits were needed total?
Well, It's not really that they're needed, it's just you sign up for the number that you need to take to get you back on track.
Okay.
Or to get you.
Some could be a .5.
Yeah, it might be 0.5, I might need 3.
Mm-hmm.
It just is kind of all over the board with that.
Well, I was looking at it as a group, so I can kind of understand what does it mean that 21 credit hours, if we, were needed, were there 50 credits total? I'm just throwing that out there. And you don't have to know this, I just wanted to know if you had an idea.
They only sign up for so many in the summer, because there's only a finite number that you can take in the compressed time of summer school. So in terms of how many this group needed in general, I can tell you it's probably way more than 21.
Well, that makes sense with the summer. You don't want to
Right.
do too much.
Right.
I have one question on the recovery for the middle school.
Mhm.
Is that both English and math, or what kind of
It's
stuff?
it's the core, English, math, science, social studies. Yeah. So that was secondary. Elementary, we actually had low numbers in our elementary program this year, and basically our enrichment is just extra work in reading and math, and most of it was in math. Grade 2 reading, 11 students, and then 4 through 6 math. So all of that, a total of 19 students. It's a non-graded enrichment experience. The only true, what I would call a true intervention program we have is our program for, at the elementary level, is program for our 3rd grade reading guarantee. So, students have to pass either the state assessment or an alternate assessment that's approved in order to be promoted to grade 4. So they have multiple opportunities to do it throughout the year. We use the measures of academic progress, or the MAP test. So these 43 students, all but 9 had not yet passed. Actually, all but 11, because 2 were exempt. Those 11 came for extra support. So the remaining needed to pass one of the assessments to be promoted. So we had 12 pass via the MAP, and none on the state assessment. So that leaves, if my math is correct, about 20 students. So,
And talk a little bit, Dr. Holden, about the opportunity for the 20 students.
for this year. So, if you do not, what the state allows you to place students gets kind of tricky, because you're in a 3rd grade reading class, but you could be in 4th grade math, science, and social studies. And so we give the MAP in the fall as a baseline, and then in November they'll take the state assessment. If they pass, if they meet that requirement, we can mid-year promote them. Otherwise,
We tried to put in another safety net for that, understanding that students are transitioning mid-year. So some of the essential skills, they're walking into the door where other students have that other foundation. So one of the things that Dr. Holden and Mrs. Martin worked out was, if you transition mid-year, we're going to have that real serious conference with your parent where we're going to recommend that you go to summer school, because you have to make up some of that lost time. And I think that will be a real nice gateway to making sure that children don't fall further behind.
and the state has pretty tight requirements on 3rd grade reading guarantees. So if you, in the fall, if you are not on track, you're required to have a reading intervention plan. It's called a RIMP, a reading improvement and monitoring, reading intervention and monitoring plan. So there are lots of steps we have to take in terms of how we intervene and support those students who don't initially meet the requirement of the 3rd grade reading.
Are some of those students in the summer enrichment program on the elementary level, or in that?
Were some of what
Were
students?
some of the students in the 3rd grade that are needing the extra work, were they in the summer program? Or? Okay.
Right.
But
So,
not all
but,
of them, no.
but so, it varies from district to district. So after the first really, there are lots of deadlines in diagnostics, but when we hit that, we have to report this child is off track or on track. Any child off track has to have a reading improvement plan, a RIMP. So for us and other districts like us, quite honestly, we're talking, we might start out with 100 kids on a RIMP. You know, and as the year goes on and you have more testing opportunities, but it's just pretty tight around the third grade reading guarantee.
And are some of the enrichment summer programs geared for like second graders that are going to be in third grade, and to give them an added boost to give them?
That is indeed is the hope and the plan. Again, this was kind of a different year. A lot of staff unavailable, quite honestly, because I took them. So it's that push-pull. So I think, you know, Dr. Ragland and I have done a lot of thinking about it, and you know, I know we'll sit down with Mr. Smith, but I think there's a way we can approach it differently next year, because we're going to have a little bit of the same situation next year with training for staff in our
One
other
of the
three
things
buildings.
that Dr. Holden and our team were working on is getting all of our teachers prepared for the new tech experience. So it was very, you know, we knew that the kids would struggle, but we knew that we were planning we had a better plan in place for this upcoming school year. So that's the give and take that she's referring to.
So Dr. Holden, what is your parent compliance with, you know, to get the parents to have their children come in the summer? So is the 43 the number that you needed to work with, or was there a larger group and you were only able to get 43 to show?
No, there's a larger group. But generally, they do come, you
Okay.
know, when they know that their child might not be promoted to the next grade.
Okay.
But no, we had more. You know, what I'm finding, and again, I don't want to get into too much detail because I've not had opportunity. I was just finishing it in this little break, my report on the third grade from last year. So I've not had opportunity to talk to Mr. Smith, but what we're finding is we are getting more English learners. And so there are different requirements for them in terms of exemptions based upon their number of years in the country. So it's really a challenge, honestly, for Mrs. Martin and these third grade teachers because of the wide variety of students that we have. You know, we have to meet everybody where they are, so. Okay. ESL camp, this is probably our most successful program in summer school. It again is enrichment. We had 66 kids, K through 6, and they love it. They sign up almost immediately. It fills up. And they do language. High school students help out. They do language activities, social activities, and our ESL teachers run that. Okay. We had, again, our cross-cultural camp with our Chinese partner school in Shanghai, Jianping. And so Mrs. Simpson, Natomi Simpson from the high school, ran a PBL science class for a week. And that was an interesting experience for the students from Jianping. And they also do some service, so they go to Matthew 25. This year they went to the Cincinnati Zoo as part of the PBL experience and did presentations at the conclusion of the week.
The presentations were actually incredible. What they did is they looked at the natural environment that a animal would be in a zoo, and they wondered, without some of the conditions, how would the animal survive? Now, one of the things that the young ladies came up with, which was very interesting, if you took the animal and put him back out in the wild, how would he adapt? Well, he would be consumed quickly because his adapting and his hunting skills have all been distorted. So they were wondering, is this good or is this not good? And one of the girls came up with something very interesting. The animals that are in the zoo, are they there for their protection or for our enjoyment? So, very interesting issue.
We also had a science enrichment camp, so this is taught by our, I don't even know what to call them, our resident science expert at the elementary school, Sean Darks.
Incredible,
What's that?
incredible.
He is incredible. So he runs a special at the elementary school around science, and this is year 2 of it. But so he did a camp for 5th graders to really just an accelerated program for not just our gifted students, but that's what we aim the summer program for. And then, you know, I think knowing what we have coming next summer, now that we've lived it once, Dr. Ragland's worked really hard to get a whole timeline together in terms of how do we look at summer school a different way, knowing that our summer is different than it typically is. So we'll do better planning that way. I think we need to figure out a way to balance the intervention with the enrichment. And I think we've seen lots of success, our science camp, our Chinese camp, our ESL camp. So how do we balance that and get kids involved in something that's not so, sometimes to children it's punitive that I have to go to summer school. Because I think we'll gain maybe just as much. And then, you know, we bridge summer school over June and July. July is really hard. However, the state kind of forces our hands because they test for 3rd grade reading guarantee in July. So maybe try and limit as much as we, or push as much as we can into June so it's more compact. But just some suggestions. I think it's going to take a team approach in terms of how do we look at summer school and make some changes.
Dr. Holden, I would like to say that I think this is great. I remember when we didn't have hardly any interventions or enrichments in the summer, and I think it warms my heart to see that there's very intentional efforts to try and help. I think Mr. Smith has done that chart where you see people making the students making progress. So you're offering not only intervention, you're also offering enrichment. So that's good.
Thank you.
You're up for the next one.
Yep. So Dr. Ragland and I are going to tag team this. This is our just an update on kind of what's happened. You know, I referenced that we had a busy summer, so you'll see that we've actually had a busy time since February.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah, a busy time. I call it a lot of other things too, but it's been a busy time. Okay. So
We're going 100 miles an hour is what we're doing every single day.
So on February 5th, that's actually when we, and I'm going to stop. I know you have a timeline, but we're going to kind of go through that in visual form. So February 5th was the day we called all the staff into the auditorium here in the high school and said, guess what? We won this huge grant. Your world is going to change. So that was the start of our journey. And we really kind of laid out to them the dollar amount, what it meant. At that point, we thought we were on a 3-year rollout. And so, you know, I was pretty blunt in telling them, I'm going to rock your world and you better hang on. And they've stepped up. And so that was the start, February 5th.
And so February 21st to the 25th, there were 6 of us who went to, what was it called? Leadership Residency. And it was in Fort Wayne. And so we actually got to tour some new tech schools, elementary, middle, as well as high school. We got to sit there and talk to those teachers and those directors and get an idea of what learning looks like, what teaching looks like, what their building culture looks like, and be able to have a discussion amongst ourselves and have an idea of what do we want our buildings to look like and devise a plan. And this sticker is what actually developed. Mrs. Denny had been working with some teachers here at the high school from AGS who were already working with project-based learning, and so this I guess, came out of that, through fruition. And so these are our 5 steps in our process for project-based learning. That is now on a lot of people's laptops, including mine. So this is our visual for that.
So you see, that was really 3 weeks, no, 3 weeks later, 2.5 weeks later, we're already at leadership residency.
Doc, is this the slide where you told them that you were going to rock their world?
No, this wasn't.
Is this it?
No.
Okay.
So then
curious.
on March 10th and 11th, the New Tech district coaches from the national office
Systems alignment.
came for our systems alignment meeting. So it was 2 days with all of the administrators in the district. So this slide is something I pulled from what we worked on, and their message to us at that point is, this change is going to be difficult. And if you don't have the purpose and the mission and the culture and relationships, those are those big rocks. It quite honestly doesn't matter how good your teaching is, how good your curriculum is. It doesn't matter, because you won't get to student achievement. So we spent a lot of time, kind of as a district leadership team, kind of discussing that and working through that, because if the system is not aligned, we are not going to be able to do this work. So that was, again, maybe 2 weeks later. So you see that things are happening all the time.
And we actually talked about our own individual journeys with one another. We mapped it out. We had to draw pictures and how we got to be here. And then we also discussed what is the Winton Woods ideal graduate. And so all of that came together to drive, what our purpose and our mission is going to be, so that we could all get on that same page. And then April 12th, we had the movie screening, Most Likely to Succeed, here in the Media Center. It actually was, what was the name of the high school?
It's High Tech High.
High Tech High.
Right.
In Napa. And so they're already doing a lot of project-based work there. And so you could follow the lives of these students over the course of a year to see how they developed as students as well as people. You could see their soft skills, their presentation skills, as well as their math and social studies, and how they came to interact with one another as well as their teachers, and you could see them grow and mature.
And the point of this movie is, well, not the point of the movie. We wanted to bring it here because when we were in Fort Wayne at Leadership Residency, we ran into Ted Dintersmith, who's a producer of this, and so he spoke to us, and so that ball started rolling, and it was a very nice fit with the work that we're doing with
and it gives a great visual of what does project-based learning look like. The culture is very different. The schools are very different, even from how they're laid out in the furniture and the design. And so what does that look like in terms of what our students are going to be doing on a regular day-to-day basis? It's not just sitting down in desks in rows as our system has been designed, and it looks very different. And this movie did a great job of showing what that looks like.
Okay, so we jumped from March to May. We had a little break in April. In May, several things happened. So these next 2 slides are connected. This is a copy of the New Tech Success Rubric. So each building principal was asked privately to really evaluate their school based upon the school success rubric. So what that will be used for is baseline data. Here before, and it was high school, middle school, and IS, but also the ES and both primaries. Here you are either just with a toe in the water or no toe in the water at all. How well aligned is your system based upon this New Tech rubric? And so as we move forward, they will continue to do this, and then we'll have comparative data in that regard. Connected to that is I just did a screenshot of the survey. So all staff and all students take a culture survey. So with New Tech, it's at the beginning of the year. Actually, scrap that. It's at the end of the year. what we're going to do as part of our district plan is really give this multiple times in the year. But it really gets at relationships, you know, how I feel about my school in terms of students. So this, again, because it's the first one, is going to be used for baseline data for grant compliance, but also because it gives us a great idea of here's where we are now. So we know that these are strong areas, these are weak areas, and here's where we have to go.
And these are given to teachers or administrators or students?
Teachers and students.
Teachers and students, okay.
Correct. Every building. Even at the primaries, it's age appropriate, so they take it.
And so it asks them questions, you know, about their relationships with their peers, as well as their relationships with their teachers, how they perceive their school.
I think that's one of the reasons that the New Tech model was adopted, because, you know, as Dr. Holden mentioned and Dr. Ragland, you know, giving me all the essential skills, the study skills, but without the relationship and responsibility that goes along with it, it doesn't fit. It won't happen. So it's the whole package. You know, society is talking about working with the whole child. Well, here's the model that really actually does that.
So how do you take the information that you get back from the survey? So you get the information, you know, how would you address it?
Right. Well, I have individual meetings with principals that I've set up for this year. So we'll discuss it there. They also have new tech coaches. And new tech coaches.
Oh, okay.
So what the coach will do is meet with the principal and the administrative team and kind of go over, and the teachers, and go over the survey results. We have a district coach. He will go over that district-wide with us as well.
That's good.
Yeah. So June 1 and 2, here's why the summer was crazy. So we had about, I think, 166 teachers, high school,
UC.
middle school, IS, some of the preview teachers from the other buildings at the University of Cincinnati, and new tech coaches came in to coach us in really project-based learning 101. So we were there for 2 days. This is actually a snapshot of some work done by the middle school, and as Dr. Ragland mentioned earlier, this ideal graduate. So it's an exercise that new tech runs you through. Picture, you know, what is the ideal graduate from your, in this case it was from your school. So the middle school teachers thought, a child who leaves us in 8th grade, this is what we want that child to look like.
So at our systems alignment training, it started with us and what we thought our ideal graduate should look like and what skills they should have, but they also continue that on with the teachers June 1st and 2nd.
But it was a lot, there was a lot of good work that went on those 2 days. I think a lot of, it was galvanizing for a lot of teachers in terms of, oh, I'm kind of understanding this, oh, I'm understanding this, and I'm worried because it's a lot of work. But it was a good foundational training for those 3 buildings in terms of project-based learning. Then June 4th through 8th, some members of the district leadership team and some principals went to meet with New Tech National in Napa to meet with Lydia Dobbins, the CEO, about kind of our rollout. Honestly, we're kind of big for them in terms of we're heavily invested and they are heavily invested in us. So we had this meeting to discuss really from a systems perspective, because Mr. Smith was there as well as Lydia. You know, really, how are we going to drive this work? That was part 1 of the trip. Part 2 was, how do we look at 2 highly successful new tech sites that happen to be right there, so that we can bring back not only the teacher actions and the, you know, what we see in the classroom and what we hear from the principals, but also facilities. I mean, we're coming up on this, hopefully positive vote in November. And so if we're there at these highly successful sites, what does it look like when a site is designed for teaching and learning that's innovative and transformative and different? And we saw it. we saw it. So these are actually pictures from Napa New Tech, which is the oldest New Tech in the network. Napa New
I
Technology.
can't
High
quite
School.
tell what I'm looking at. I guess it's
So-
too much light. Is this a lab, a science lab? Or?
This is a,
Garden area.
turn that middle switch. This is a, their outdoor garden that goes out to some
Oh, okay,
modulars.
okay.
So that classroom is extended?
Right.
Okay.
And so this is in what is their cafeteria, but it also serves lots of purposes. So it's a garage door inside, and so there are like bars, like a breakfast bar that you might have in your home, or and tables. And so kids just sit and congregate and collaborate based upon the need. And then this is a classroom. I probably didn't do it justice, quite large, but just different spaces, different furniture.
I had the pleasure of seeing the original New Tech many years ago, and they have just converted this thing and just built around this school. And you can tell that they really care about children. You could see that when you walk in, you feel the energy. And there were no children there, but you can tell that those rooms are designed for them and for their learning experiences.
And the other school we visited, American Canyon, I don't have pictures up here, but it's new.
It'll make you jealous.
It's new. You know, a whole field of solar panels. I mean, it is California, but
They have outdoor learning spaces.
outdoor learning,
spaces for
outdoor cafeteria.
presentations.
So, but it was good to see. I mean, it's nice to see, so we
Yes.
can say, okay, how does this translate to our world?
Yes.
So,
And then this is our New Tech Annual Conference. So we all went to Orlando. As you can see, this is me looking at the trail of us. We all got off the plane and got to the hotel all at the same time at almost midnight. But you see the poster again. This is, I think, one of our principals, Danielle Wallace, if I'm not mistaken. And this was the result of one of the workshops that she attended. Again, trying to develop her mission and vision for what her particular building, Primary South, is going to look like for her students.
you know, it was 4 days of long, really brain taxing sessions. I mean, you had to think and collaborate. The teachers did lots of collaboration and planning for the upcoming year, and they were busy all
And
the time.
there were different tracks too, depending on where you were. You know, if your building was coming on board this year versus if your building was coming on board next year. So there was a general track. There were some teachers, for example, Natami Simpson here at the high school. She got on a trainer track. So we now have 2 teachers at the high school who are New Tech trainers. And so we had teachers who were learning to design projects from the very beginning, because that's where they were. They didn't know how to design the projects, and so they were learning all about that. And then there were others who were, I know more about projects, so I just want ideas. You know, give me some more ideas relative to my subject matter, my content area.
So this is the heaviest piece of PD, aside from the coaching that they will come in and do. So I think some people might think, hey, it's 4 days in Orlando. I gotta say,
No.
these teachers worked and worked and worked, and you would be quite proud of them, because they represented the district well, and people know who we are. So it was a good way to really kind of end last year and then start next year. So in August, I'll let Tamara explain Dr. Ragland explain the sheets, but we had a smaller session of Project-Based Learning 101 for those folks who could not attend in June at the University of Cincinnati.
And we were blessed to have one of the New Tech math coaches. So since she was math content specific, we had a smaller PRBL training for math teachers who were either new to the district and couldn't come June 1st and 2nd, as well as existing math teachers who wanted to know more about PRBL. And so as they worked together in their teams, this is what they came up with as a group about what true math learning is. And so one of the things that you won't see up here is a lot of what we call drill and kill. True math learning is not about that. It's not about 10,000 hours of practicing the same thing over and over. And so because this is what they decided, what they believe that true math learning is and what savvy problem solvers are able to do, they were greatly encouraged by their math coach to believe in that and to keep doing that even when it gets hard, because PBL is all about developing this. And when you're not familiar with it, when you're not comfortable with it, even as a teacher, the first thing you want to do is revert back to before. And because we're all in and moving ahead, we can't revert back to before just because it feels uncomfortable for us.
So,
How did that get in there? Really?
you know, this, I think everybody had a good time. And a little story. And I'm gonna share something, Mr. Smith. So, in Orlando,
We had a fight.
we had a big fight about what was going to happen at convocation, and we all had ideas, and quite honestly, they were stupid because he just said, I'm going to take care of it. And so my point is, that's kind of what Orlando is. You fight about things that are important. Fight in an appropriate way, but about things that are important, about projects, about, is this what we believe or is this what we believe? And how is that going to dictate the way we behave? But he had enough of us. He said, I'm going to do it.
He literally said, I'm just going to play the drums. That's it.
So I think everybody got the message that this year is different. It was a great example for students or for teachers about perseverance, and PBL is going to be hard, and you have to, go outside your boundaries, and you have to take risk. And I think it was wildly successful. So, yeah.
And I think that continued on. It started from the top, Mr. Smith saying it's going to be different.
Oh, I'm the top now?
Yeah, you're the top.
Oh, okay.
You weren't when we were fighting, though.
Definitely wasn't the top.
It started from him letting everyone know in the district that it really is going to be different. So much so that you can even see me by example. And so the building principals also took on that challenge to let teachers know that it's, we're not just talking, we're going to walk this walk. We're going to model this model. And so you'll see teachers building towers with spaghetti and marshmallows here, and they are working together in collaborative groups, and this group looks like they're bonding together sitting in a tent. That looks like a high school group.
They did.
There.
They had a journey out in the community. And we gave each building all day on Monday. We did all of our kind of compliance things on Friday, but the directive was, this is your day on Monday. We didn't vet the plans, but we did a critical friends piece at our administrative retreat. Tell us your plans. And it was lovely, because it's our goal to model the model. We won't always be successful, so we have to check each other. But I think just by telling the principals, you can do this, we're trusting you to do this, we're taking hands off, and they did. And it was, the 15th was a great day for teachers, and then we asked them to do that for children on the 16th. So.
And there were lots of evidence of those projects too. They were uploaded on Slack, district channel. And so here you see Miss Darcy and a group of community members, and they are welcoming our students into, what is that, Primary North? Primary North. They're excited about that day. We've got middle school students, and they look like they are involved in a challenge there, rearranging some toothpicks and marshmallows as well. And so problem-based learning and also project-based learning are about creativity, problem solving, trying to get our students to analyze information and think at a deeper, more critical level, as well as collaborate with one another. And so whether it was Mr. Smith, whether it was our building principals and the projects that they had for their buildings. Now it's filtered down to our teachers and their students on day one.
Okay, so Mrs. Denny really has largely been behind all of the communications push out with New Tech. So since February, she's been going double time. So as you know, we had a kind of an 8-week rollout of our information about New Tech. That's really compiled in that there's a single document now that's really a summary of that 8 weeks of information. New Tech on their national website, they've really featured us. They've featured our video. There's a profile of Maklit Zinabu, who is our salutatorian, about here's what my experience with New Tech has done for me. Go to the next one too. We do the Supercast, which is once a month a podcast with the partnership of Waycross Community TV. So those have been pretty good. That was my favorite with my
Doc,
with
are we
my
out of the- are we
with
out
my
of the
young men
contest
from
yet?
from the inaugural
Are we out of
graduating
the
class.
contest yet? Are we eliminated yet?
I don't know.
Okay.
Did you
So-
tell them about the contest?
No, I just,
So when we were in Orlando, Mr. Smith and Lydia Dobbins, head of the CEO of New Tech, put out a video to be selected for South by Southwest. So they're in the running. So please vote. I already voted.
you voted for me?
I did.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go back to that one, the podcast.
Yep. I said, you know, these young men, wow, they paved the way. So
Incredible.
real pioneers.
They mentioned in the podcast that all of them are in college, and they mentioned the experience they had in the academy or with New Tech really made them the leaders in their classroom. And one of the discouraging parts of it in some universities, because they may think they know about Winton Woods, but they don't. They were surprised that these kids came from this district. So, but that's okay, because more of them will come.
Right.
And they will be the leaders. And when you listen to the podcast and you see their interviews, it looks like these kids they're ready to graduate from college. But they say they were so prepared for the exposure and the intensity of college that some of their classmates were not ready for that exposure. That they are just in a group of exciting young men. And so we're going to get them to come back probably every year and see how they grow.
I would encourage the public to really listen to the podcasts that are on the website. They're very good. So that's the overview, which is a compilation of all of the 8 weeks of information, the rollout. Okay, so school year started. Coaching is starting in September, so the coaches will be back, the New Tech coaches, to work in the buildings. Probably the 6th to the 15th and the 16th, so they'll come in on the 15th and do visits, and then actually work with teachers on the 16th. Tomorrow and Wednesday, we have our baseline evaluation visit with New Tech and the grant evaluator. And in mid-September, I am taking some folks to two New Tech elementaries. One is Catherine Smith out of Evergreen School District in California, and the other is Napa Junction. Two very specific reasons. Both are New Techs. Catherine Smith has a very high EL population, very successful school. Napa Junction has a very high students with disabilities population. So again, we need to be like sponges. How can we go and see and bring it back? These are schools who are living the model, exactly what we're telling our teachers to do, and they're elementaries. And that'll give us a different view, because sometimes on these visits you see high schools and secondary schools. So that's coming up. And then, you know, part of the New Tech process is every fall and spring there's a leadership summit for those principals who are involved in the work. So the fall one is coming up in November in Greenville. And then, you know, this really captures it. Trust, respect, responsibility. That's the whole warrior piece. Jesus Galan mentioned, you know, a couple times, here's what it is to be a warrior. And so I think that's that's a great metaphor for our students. Warrior in terms of, I'm never going to stop fighting. You know, as administrators in the district, we can never stop fighting. Teachers in the district can never stop fighting. Students in the district can never stop fighting because the rewards are great, and we're going to get there. So.
One question I had as you were talking, I know we did this big push to get everybody trained, you know, for the new tech. But moving forward, like the sustainability of the training, you're going to have like sort of the train the trainer.
Yep.
So once, you know, you get a group, so that's how we're going to use our money wisely as opposed to sending everybody all the way to Florida every time. We're going to do some in-house training.
So it's all kind of spelled out in the grant. So the process I just described, in February there'll be another leadership residency, and it will be the elementary, primary north, primary south. Then there'll be more district systems alignment meetings. There'll be another project-based learning training in district because we're so big for teachers. The reason the summer conference for these 2 years is important is because that's where New Tech holds their new schools piece. So it's really structured, it's a whole track for teachers who are in a New Tech school. And so they walk you through the whole process. So after next summer, it will be, you know, the conference happens every year. Then it will be much smaller, you know, how do we go to this? And then train the trainer. Dr. Ragland mentioned Natombi Simpson and Josh Amstutz. They're both New Tech certified trainers. So the goal is to kind of grow that capacity because we have to sustain this for 5 years after the second year. And quite honestly, the only way we're going to sustain it is to learn how to coach ourselves.
Absolutely.
And New Tech has offers opportunities for teachers to become New Tech certified teachers as well as New Tech certified trainers, and it takes some time and some effort, and so we are certainly encouraging our teachers to do that as well, which would put us in an even better position for sustainability in training new teachers once our grant is expended, and so then we can still move ahead with that work.
And just, I guess, a reminder, I guess, a question, sort of reminder, I guess the framework that both of you worked on is kind of married in with this
Absolutely.
whole project.
You know, the New Tech is not a curriculum, nor, you know, and the framework is just what it says, it's a framework.
Right.
So the framework says, here's how we're going to, here are things we're going to emphasize when we teach the Ohio's Learning Standards. New Tech says, hey, here's our pedagogy, this wall-to-wall project-based learning. When you teach your standards, this is the pedagogy you're going to use. Right.
And I think, speaking for the math framework, you know, we have a vision, a philosophy of what mathematics teaching and learning should look like in the district. And so if you look at those first 5 pillars in the beginning pages of the framework, it does lend itself very well to New Tech and PBL.
Okay, good. I didn't mean to have all the questions, sorry.
Thank you.
I do have a comment. I think you left a slide out.
I did.
Yeah, the one, I think it was Mr. Martin and yourself at convocation.
No.
I think you left one out.
Bravo. Yes.
Some of that one. I
Get that
just
one
wanted
back
to
in there.
let you know.
Way to go, Doc. And Doc.
Yeah, Mr. Smith, you have the floor, I guess, for 8.04, individuals with Disability Act, the idea.
Yes, Mr. Denny and Ms. Darcy.
Yes. This isn't quite as exciting as what you just saw, because that is very exciting. And it fits very well with students with disabilities. Let me tell you, it's individualized, it's hands-on, it's everything that we want our kids to have, so very exciting. So Mr. Denny and I are going to speak tonight. We're going to tag team as well. There we are. Let me go to the next one. So tonight we're going to talk about our special education report card. We get that annually. We're going to talk about the fiscal year budget 2016 as well as the current fiscal year 2017. And then as a requirement, we're asked for public comments and participation. So just a little background, and this is really little. There's a lot of information out there, but basically about 1 in 5 people have a learning disability, about 20% of the population, and over 1 million children ages 6 to 21 have some form of disability and receive special education in public schools and non-public. And that's not even including our preschool population beginning at age 3, and that's a whole nother group, so that number is a lot larger. So IDEA is the Individuals with Disability Education Act. That is the requirement that we must follow the federal laws in order to be compliant and serve students with disabilities, from intervention to evaluation, identification, and then providing services through an IEP. Okay, thank you. So every year our district gets a rating, as all districts do, on special ed indicators. And ODE monitors us this way by ensuring that we are compliant with the federal laws and state laws. So they get that data by our EMIS management, so we do a final submission, and they rate us in 4 ratings: meets requirements, needs assistance, needs intervention, or needs substantial intervention. Our rating for 2016 is meets requirement. We're very proud of that. Since I've been here and since they've implemented this report card, we've always been at meets requirements. So they look at 9 indicators. There are many more indicators, but they focus on 9 of them. And the first one is disproportionality in discipline, meaning discrepancies by race or ethnicity in the rate of suspensions and expulsions greater than 10 days in a school year. So to see if there's an imbalance of disciplining students with disabilities versus other populations. Then disproportionality, this is disproportionality in the different disability categories. And again, we were fine there. Indicator 10 is just specific to specific disability categories. Again, they look at these and they do a risk ratio. And the risk ratio for these is 3.5, and we were under 2 on all of these. Indicator 11 is timely initial evaluations. That's the percent of children evaluated in 60 days. Once you get consent from a parent for an evaluation, that has to be done within 60 calendar days. You can't get over that. And that target for the state is 100%. We were at 98.56. Indicator 12 is early childhood transition from Part C to B. This is the percent of children who are referred from early intervention, Help Me Grow, and found eligible for preschool services, and they had to have an evaluation and IEP in place before age 3. Indicator 13 is post-secondary transition, and that's the percent of use with IEPs that have a transition plan in place in their IEP. There's sections of the IEP, section 4 and 5, that focus on that, and those services must be in place and implemented before the age of 14. So these are 3 that we really had no findings on, like timely correction of noncompliance, because we had no noncompliance issues. Timely and accurate data. All of our data was valid, reliable, and turned in a timely manner, and we had no audit findings. So the way we're scored is you can get a 4 on each indicator, and for a total of 36 points because they looked at 9 indicators. So we got a perfect score. So we're very proud of that, and our team works very hard on that. I just wanted to say too that next year, 2018, the report card will look a little different. They're going to look at some of the results in terms of reading proficiency, graduation rate, math proficiency. They're going to look at preschool is going to be included, which it hasn't been before in terms of results. And they did a projection. I think we're going to do pretty well. It's kind of hard to tell, but one indicator that they are going to look at that I was very proud of was the third grade reading guarantee. The target was something like 35, and our students with disabilities were like about 53%. So we're well, doing pretty well on that one. We were really close, I think, also in a reading indicator, just the proficiency in reading. So we have a little bit of work to do because some things will be added, but I think it'll be pretty good, hopefully. And Mr. Danny.
Thanks, Ms. Darcy. So I'd like to thank Dr. Holden and Dr. Ragland for making it very exciting and hard to follow. But basically, Ms. Darcy's responsible for the oversight and general operation of the special education program in our district. My role is on the financial side with the grant management. Specifically in this case, it's the IDEA grant, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is tied to the allocations you can see on this graph. So this just shows the allocations over time from 2008 until this present fiscal year. I don't have data available prior to that, but you can see the level of funding. And we're actually up a little bit this year because of the state's allocation and the federal funding formulas and the Office of Management and Budget at the federal level. But we're up as high as we've ever been since the precipitous decline you can see in 2008. So we're an initial allocation for this year of $924,983. We have no carryover restrictions in IDEA, so whatever you didn't spend last year, 100% of that carries over to the following year. There are enormous numbers of restrictions on how you spend your special education dollars. So you can't spend too much in your general fund, or you actually are penalized later and you can actually have to refund the state money. So you have to be very cautious about how you spend these dollars.
So the change in the grant is not necessarily saying that we've had less, or the allocations that we had less students. It's just that it's a change in the amount that the state allocates, or the feds.
It's more about what the federal government and OMB, the Office of Management and Budget at the federal level, is doing. Yeah, in fact, if you tracked our special education numbers, we've been fairly stable, I'd say, across the years. So they do factor that into the formula, but what they start with is different. So again, just looking last year to this year, and there'll be a lot of this, we'll basically take a look at it in that way and then invite any input that we might have on the budget allocations or the budget itself. In 16, you can see there was an increase to this fiscal year. So. And then this is just an overview. So I thought graphs would be the best way to look at this. Just see it in a picture form. You can see the proportions of what's being spent. Again, we'll start with last year and then look at this year, so you can just see the relative comparison. But this one shows for instruction, and then governance administration is the yellow color. So instruction is the blue. This is looking at it by function in the accounting model, the USAS accounting model, the system that we use. This one looks at it by object. So you can see that the bulk of the dollars, if you back up one, Ms. O'Connor, bulk of the dollars are on instruction, and that instruction is around, if you look at the next one, paying salaries and benefits for the teachers that are working with children with disabilities. So those teachers all have to be intervention specialists. We also spend there's retirement fringe benefits, so that's the salary is the light blue, the benefits are the green, and you can see that what we're left with out of about a little under $1 million grant is about $70,000 that is either the administrative charge-off amount that ODE allows us to take for handling the grants, and then purchase services, which we have, which is largely professional development. I don't know. You can do next or previous.
Okay.
We'll just go to next. It's okay. So we have a bonus screen. We have a bonus object on the screen there. So this is by function. Again, you can see the vast majority is spent on instruction. And just go to next. Why not? And then this one again, you can see it's very similar. So I guess part of nice job. Thank you. We got good tech support. Part of what you can see here is it's very similar. The grant is largely used to fund teachers. Like the vast majority of the budget is funding teachers, which is very similar to our overall budget. We are a very people-heavy industry. So that's just the way the model works. We spend approximately 79 to 80% of our budget.
Industry. People appropriate industry.
People appropriate industry.
Yes.
We're people serving people.
That's
so,
right. That's what we do.
About 80% of our budget is personnel in the general fund, and it's also true in IDEA. So that's done to maximize the dollars as well as the impact with the kids, the students. So at this point, we turn to the audience and ask what input might you have specifically about the budget, but also about any other things that you might have seen in the presentation or questions that you might have that Ms. Darcy or I can assist with.
Any questions? One question? I just have one question about the perfect score. Like, what impact does that have on us as a district to have a perfect score where it's concerning that perfect score? I mean,
Well, yeah, that's a good question. You never really truly know that. I can tell you just the feedback I get. Sometimes I question parents, why Winton Woods? Because I kind of want to know. And honestly, I think we've had this discussion before, and I'm very proud of the fact that we have excellent teachers, excellent service, and I think, that score's part of that, that excellent service that we try to be very cognizant of and be on top of things, not only just with the compliant issues, but with our families. So we've opened and enrolled a few students with disabilities.
that's the impact then.
That has to be, I would think that's part of it.
I might just add that if you aren't successful in having a perfect score, the consequences of that can be
Financial.
very detrimental and can be financial.
Which you'll barely be able to support the students that we have
Right.
because there will be slashes along the
Right.
way.
Numbers, the state funding gets
Yes.
slashed when the number isn't.
Right. The consequence of, if you're at needs substantial intervention means they bring their team in. A lot of times money is taken away. They're not funding you because they think you're not doing your job appropriately. But they will come in and start working with you.
So to answer your question, Dr. Johnson, it's a catch-22.
That's what I was,
I know.
that's what I kind of thought. I kind of thought that might be. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other?
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to 8.05, open enrollment update. Mr. Smith. All right.
I don't have that one.
I don't, I must be looking at an old agenda. Sorry about that. Let's keep moving on. The next item on the agenda, Mr. Smith, is 9.01 personnel schedules.
Yes, Madam Vice President and Board, the recommendation is to approve the resignation, Schedule A, Schedule B, certificated employment, Schedule C, support staff, Schedule D, supplementals, and Schedule E, leaves.
Madam Vice President, if you'd like a motion, I'd like to approve the personnel schedules as presented.
Second?
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Seymour, please call the vote.
Mrs. Ruggles.
Aye.
Mr. Birdie.
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn.
Aye.
Dr. Johnson.
Aye. Okay, the next item is 9.02, revised board policies.
Yes, Madam Vice President, excuse me, and Board, the recommendation is to approve the revised board policies as presented. Relations, public attendance at school events, policy 9160, revised policy 9700, relations with special interest groups, and finally revised policy 5513, students' care of school property.
Okay, board, a motion will be in order.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the revised board policies as presented.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on these board policies? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call a vote?
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Mrs. Kent?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye. Okay, we go back to you, Mr. Smith, for 9.03, the change order for the Winton Woods High School elementary and concrete repair.
Yes, Madam Vice President and Board. These are some of the unintended consequences that we talk about when we're going into repairs that are definitely needed. The business manager, Mr. Denny, has worked diligently to make sure we have the right bid, the best operations, the best services. And as a consequence, for some things that we can't control, once we go into restructuring property or changing the dynamics of it or fixing it, we run into something else. And Mr. Denny, can you come up and just kind of give the board an idea of what some of those things look like?
Thank you, Mr. Smith, and good evening again, board. So this is the first change order I've actually had to bring to the board in almost 6 years. But this one was a little bit of a surprise. The bridge was a surprise last year, but it wasn't a bid project. This is a bid project, and you may recall, I believe it was June, you heard a bit about basically a bid opening, and your approval was asked to authorize a contract with Architectural Maintenance Services as the vendor that was the lowest, most responsible bid for the repair of the high school exterior concrete columns, support columns, as well as the exterior support columns at the elementary school, both of which were in need of sealant and repair. And I think it's easier to understand if I just tell a quick story, and the pictures are worth 1,000 words, so I'll try to be brief. But I was called over to the high school, I believe this was late February, early March, because basically a section of concrete on that support column had just scaled off and shattered on the ground. And that's not good, and that's not normal. So when we investigated it, what we found was we've got basically some column there that needs to be repaired. That's called a haunch. That's the concrete haunch that supports that bulwark up above. Directly behind that wall is the band room and the choir room at the high school. So architectural maintenance provided the bid. We accepted the bid. It was $65,800 to repair it. But unfortunately, if you go to the next slide, when they began to chip it apart, the whole thing came off. So all the concrete basically spalled off. It was non-load bearing, wasn't going to be able to support structure. They weren't going to be able to seal it. And basically the result was they had to completely re-pour it. So you can see what's left. That's why they had to shore it, was just in case. That was a precautionary measure. So we had to get the Forest Park Building Department involved and make sure they had a comfort level with the repair that was happening as well. So you can see the cutout, and then the haunch had to be supported and re-poured. We rearranged several pieces of work at the elementary school that we could do. Next slide, please. That's just another view of it. But at the end of the day, this had to be addressed. You can't recover from that. Once you open it up and it scales to that degree, we really had little choice. And unfortunately, I don't know if you can see this, but that type of concrete is not really used much anymore. That's called exposed aggregate. It's where you take concrete and then you brush it so that the pebbles underneath and the gravel that's inside the concrete to help strengthen it actually come to the surface and give a decorative effect. Well, what happens is water gets in there. It's very hard to seal. Eventually it becomes unsealed. Water gets in there and eventually pops the pebbles off. So if you ever walk into the high school and see pebbles laying on the ground in the wintertime, that's what's happening, is it's freezing and popping the pebbles off. So that's just one more view of the rebar. The rebar's okay. There is one section there that we resealed, but the rebar's okay. It's the concrete that needed help.
Mr. Denny, go back one slide, please.
Sure.
Explain to the board the wooden beams.
That's shoring. That's to be sure that during that work that
it doesn't collapse.
That's pretty anemic. I don't even see that. That's probably 1/3 of the structural strength that it should have. These columns are always over designed, but just to be safe, you want to make sure that you're supporting the structure while the repair takes place. So that's the shoring.
Thank you.
Can you go back one more slide?
Sure.
So, is that extension out the part where you're trying to repair? I can't tell by the picture. Is that part of a long beam? Is that the extension of a long beam?
Yes.
That's under there? Okay.
Yeah, let me go ahead and pass these out if you each would take one of these.
I got it.
Thanks, Mr. Smith.
And is the
You
work?
get a little better view of this on these photos.
And it looks like there's work in the front as well.
Yeah, we actually had patching all over this. If you drive, well, we're in this building tonight. If you drive by, you'll see there's patching here. There's patching further down by the band entry. This actually was failed also, so they had to do what they call a cutout joint there. So there's a cutout joint. But yeah, that's to answer your question, and that's a good question. Structurally,
Okay.
this is the support beam that holds that weight right there. You can see one coming out here, and one comes across here. So that's all steel rebar encased in concrete. That load from this weight is transferred along that beam and then down that column to the ground.
Then what did you say is not load bearing? This is load bearing, correct?
Well, what I'm saying, it is load bearing.
It should be load bearing.
This is
Oh,
added
the
load
beam
bearing.
to the shore.
That was
up.
The
just-
shoring
Okay.
is to ensure.
Okay.
That haunch was estimated to be at about 30% carrying capacity.
Okay.
One thing I want you to just reinforce for us is the fact that this whole structure is designed with this decorative facade
all
that's
of
going
it.
to continue to have the same problem.
Right. This is the
Going
third
on.
time I've repaired this in 5 years.
And are you finding it happening more frequently with
Yes.
age?
It accelerates as the building ages.
Okay, and what percentage of the building would you say it does, which is a lot actually, the front of the building? If you look at it, you can,
A lot of it. You can find this all around the whole building at the high school.
yeah, that's what I wanted to emphasize.
Yes.
That this is just a little scratch of the surface, so to speak.
Right. That's accurate.
And a taste of possibly what could be an ongoing
There's
chronic.
absolutely no doubt
Guaranteed.
that, given the design of these buildings and the age in which they were built, concrete was a major component in the structural design and
Right.
exterior
The students are
concrete.
still using that as an entryway, because that goes right into the front office,
Correct.
right?
Yes, that's the
Well,
main
and-
entry.
Yeah, so should something fall, it would be dangerous for students, any visitors.
Right. And the same is actually true at the elementary school. It's an exterior concrete column. It's an outrigger construction design, so the load is being borne on the outside like that.
And one of the points that I did want to highlight, and this for our audience at home, and is the fact that this is going to be an ongoing issue, that new, possibly with the state of Ohio giving almost $49 million in funding for new buildings, this is just another emphasis why it would be a good idea for our community to invest in new school buildings, in my estimation.
Ms. Kuhn, I think you make an excellent point. The only other additional problem that Mr. Denny has alerted me about, I don't know how long it would take for the rest of this to start deteriorating.
Right.
Because more of it will happen, for sure. Because you can see the design and the pebbles. So, again, when he mentioned seeing pebbles on the ground, people really never thought, okay, pebbles on the ground, sweep them up, keep moving. But then you start looking at the consequences behind it, and it seems like every time the engineers go in to repair, they find more damages than they didn't anticipate.
Because you were saying something about the water gets in between there, so when they
And
knock the little
freezes.
piece that might be a problem, then the other rest of it crumbles.
That's
It's
exactly
sort
what
of like
happens.
the
Right.
domino effect.
Does
Right.
it freeze and break open?
Yeah, it's water penetrates behind the openings,
Yeah.
freezes, expands, and then pops
Sure.
the pieces apart.
Yes, I think this is a good example of good money after bad, but a repair that must be
Yeah.
done. It's unavoidable, but yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So this is the finished product. And again, to complete that work, we had to go to the elementary school and rearrange work. There was about $16,000 in additional work identified, some of which I could defer, some of which I could not. So there was a project overrun because the board already approved this as a bid and a contract was authorized in a certain amount. When we exceed that requirement, it's incumbent upon the administration to come back and request that you approve the additional dollars since it exceeded the bid. So you can see the overage amount is a little over I believe it's $8,900, $8,903.20. So you should find in your packet a color version of each photo, so you have that to reference. So I think that really explains the why better than me showing you a bunch of figures, although the figures are there. If you look on the change order, it's in there. You can see where the costs went, how it was, where the deducts were and where the adds were compared to the original base bid. But the new contract amount would be for $74,703. We would respectfully request your consideration and approval of the additional change order amount. Happy to entertain any other questions you might have.
Board, a motion would be in order.
I make a motion to approve the change order Winton Woods High School and elementary concrete repairs as presented.
I second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. We've had quite a bit of discussion. Are there any other questions for Mr. Denny? All right, seeing none. Mr. Seymour, would you please call the vote?
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Denny. The next item, item 10, is the Board of Education reports is next on the agenda. And for the legislative report, there is no report tonight in President Miranda's absence. So the next item is 10.02, the Great Oaks Career Technology Report. And Mr. Cleary left a report on each one of our desks. So please read that. If you have any questions, you can forward them to Mr. Cleary. He assured me that next month would be a fuller report as school just got started. So this was just kind of an opening up, okay? Moving on to the next item, 11, board motions and recommendations. Are there any board motions and recommendations? I don't have any, and seeing none, we'll just move on to the comments from the board. We'll start with, let's start with Mrs. Ruggles.
Board, I had an opportunity to participate in some of the back-to-school activities, and I have to say the convocation was a very good experience. It really energized me in understanding where we're going and how, the environment or the culture is energized to get started. So that was very exciting. It was very exciting to see Mr. Smith and Dr. Holden and Mr. Martin do their thing on the stage. So that was good. And then I had an opportunity to go to the clap-in at the elementary school, Primary South, and the middle school. It was very well attended, I think it's very impactful in changing the culture and bringing community members out. I was glad to see community members out, individuals who worked at, Hamilton County Educational Services, who used to work in the district but came back just to show the importance of that we have to make education a community priority. And then I was able to go to Primary South and North, Jumpstart. And that's very important in touching the parents at that very early age and giving them a great impression of what life will be like as a warrior parent and getting the students excited about it. And my background is working with Head Start, so I kind of wanted to go down to see the kids, but my background with preschool said don't go and disturb anything. So it was just really energizing to see all of the good things that are happening in the district and being able to share those things as well.
Thank you, Mrs. Ruggles. Mr. Birdie?
For me, I think Mr. Denny's presentation on the concrete repairs just highlights the need that this district has for new buildings. we've got an opportunity here with an almost $49 million contribution from the state of Ohio that may not come back to us again, that we truly need to take advantage of as a community. I mean, we need to invest in these students that we've got in the Winton Woods School District. We're going to wind up spending money one way or another. We're going to be spending money on repairs and maintenance, which is going to come out of, and we've said all this before, which is going to come out of the general fund, which is going to be a reduction in the amount of money we have for instructional use for our students. It doesn't make any sense to me that we wouldn't think that passing this levy that's going to be on the ballot in November is the right thing for this community. I mean, to spend 60 million, 80 million, whichever way you want to go with it, to repair, replace, renovate old buildings, and have still issues like this that we're dealing with, where you could get brand new buildings for $61 million that will actually facilitate the learning environment for our students, which is the most important thing that we're here to do. So I'm, looking forward as we move closer to the levy campaign that we will be able to educate the community on what this means to the school district and what this means to the students and the community at large.
Thank you, Mr. Birdie. Mrs. Coon?
I'm really excited as far as our board being able to support our staff, our teachers, giving them the opportunity to grow expectations. We have a lot of expectations of our teachers. We did show that by giving raises, which I think is important because we have to keep our teachers. We have to have some continuity. We're investing in our teachers. We're investing in our children. We want those high expectations delivered. So we're real excited about this new venture. I think it goes hand in hand with having facilities that work in conjunction and in coordinate, and in concert with this new program. I think we are on the cusp of a new horizon. I think our community deserves it. I think there's an opportunity, but we have to be diligent as a community to support not only this opportunity with education, but with the opportunity with the buildings itself. I don't want to take funding away from the classroom to fix. They're necessary to do, but it frustrates me as a board member to take that money away from our students, and which we're charged to do to educate them. They have to have a safe place, and we have to take care of them. But that drives me crazy. So I encourage everyone to vote November 8th for the bond levy, or the bond issue. I think that gives us an opportunity to grow this district and to escalate it to higher and higher levels of success. So I'm really excited about this prospect. I think, like I said, we're right on the horizon. I think this will give it the boost to bring the district to where it needs to be and where we expect it to be as a community. So.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Mrs. Coon. I just have a couple of things I want to highlight. I'd like to commend Jeanette Jordan and the administrative team for organizing what I thought was one of the most welcoming, inspiring, and energetic convocations that I've ever attended. And I've been in education for 26 years at Cincinnati State, and I've not attended a convocation that was quite so energetic. So thank you for that. If you missed it, then you missed a lot. You can always tell if an event is a success because after the event is over, people just kind of stand around and still talk. They don't leave, and that's what happened, And I had an appointment that I had to get to, and I didn't want to leave either. So, I mean, that's a good thing, though. That's always a good thing. I'd also like to welcome back the staff, the teachers, students, parents, volunteers, the administrators, and all the stakeholders, and everyone that's connected with the Winton Woods City School District that gives back to our students for this 2016-2017 school year. As an educator, I'm always excited when it's the start of a new school year. I can't help myself. I don't know. I try to stop myself. I got the butterflies, and I've taught the summer. I don't know what it is. It's something. It's our wiring. It's how we're wired. Okay. So anyway, I accept that. That's my flight. The next thing I would also especially like to thank Mr. Brandon Smith, 2002 graduate. for being the brainchild behind the Warrior Rally for the first day of school. It was a tremendous success. I myself was able to travel to 3 schools. I had my grandson with me. The first 2, he was pretty energetic. By the 3rd one, he's like, okay, can we go get breakfast? But anyway, he was excited to see, and he went to school, started the very next day. But the middle school, I was at the middle school, the elementary school, and Primary South, and it was a tremendous success. As a matter of fact, some of the parents who were bringing their kids in, they came back and got in line, and they started clapping with us. That's when you know something's working.
Yes.
That's when you know it's working. Because not only did we do it, the people that went and dropped their kids was like, hey, I got an extra 5 minutes or so, I'll stand here and clap with you, you know. So it was just a success. And then when I talked to some other people who were at the other buildings, they said, you know, it was pretty much a success too. So bravo to you, Brandon, for that great idea. And I look forward to doing it again next year and for years to come. And hopefully it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger as we, you know, move on. I also want to send out a welcome to our Littlest Warriors who will start on August the 24th, our preschoolers. So our Littlest Warriors are going to be starting. Just send out a welcome to that and tell the parents, don't forget to update their emergency contact. We have the new system, the InfoSnap program, so remember to use that system. If you don't have a computer, you can always do it the old-fashioned way, but if you do, go ahead and do it that way. And I'm looking forward to a stellar year, so go Warriors. So, Mr. Smith, Superintendent, if you have anything at this time?
No, not today.
Not today. Mr. Seymour? You
No,
have
thank
anything
you.
you'd like to add? He's like, no. Okay. I don't think we have a representative from the Winton Woods Teachers Association here this evening, and we don't have an OPSI representative, and there is not a need for an executive session, as I understand it. Okay, not a need. So if there's nothing else, this meeting will be adjourned. And thank you, and have a good night. Okay.